The night stretched endlessly across Route 17, a lonely, forgotten highway cutting through miles of empty land. The rain had been falling for hours, thin and cold, tapping gently against the windshield like nervous fingers. The wipers moved back and forth with a steady rhythm, the only sound breaking the silence of the desolate night. Mark, a delivery driver in his mid-30s, leaned forward over the steering wheel, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. The road had been empty for nearly an hour. No headlights behind him, no signboards, no life, just darkness and mist curling over the wet asphalt. His phone had lost signal miles ago. The only company he had was the low hum of the engine and the faint static on the radio. Lightning flashed for a moment, illuminating the endless stretch ahead. Twisted trees on both sides, their branches like reaching hands. The thunder followed, distant but deep, echoing through the open fields. Mark rubbed his eyes and exhaled, whispering to himself, "Just 30 more minutes, then I'm done." But something about that road felt wrong. Too quiet, too still. Even the sound of rain seemed unnatural now, muffled, like the world was holding its breath. The fog thickened, crawling low across the ground, swirling around the car as if it were alive. The dashboard clock flicked from 12:14 a.m. to 12:15. That single minute stretched endlessly. Mark turned down the radio volume. A sense of unease pressed against his chest, subtle but undeniable. He couldn't explain it, just an instinct whispering that he wasn't alone anymore. Then, through the blur of rain and fog, he noticed movement ahead. Faint, slow, human-shaped. His foot eased off the accelerator as the figure came into view. A woman, standing at the edge of the road, drenched, motionless, waiting. The rain hit harder. The engine hummed low. And for the first time that night, Mark felt truly afraid. The headlights sliced through the curtain of rain as Mark slowed the truck. The figure ahead didn't move. She stood completely still at the edge of the road, a woman dressed in white, her long hair sticking to her face and shoulders. For a second, Mark thought she might be injured. He rolled down the window slightly, rain splashing inside. "Hey, are you okay?" he called out. The woman didn't answer. She simply turned her head toward him, slowly, too slowly. Her face was pale, lips slightly blue from the cold, and her eyes seemed to reflect the light in a strange, unnatural way, like glass. She raised one trembling hand, pointing down the road. "Please, take me across the bridge," she whispered, her voice barely audible through the rain. Mark hesitated. Something about her presence sent a chill down his spine. But guilt overpowered fear. She looked helpless, lost, alone in the storm. He unlocked the door. "Get in," he said softly. The woman opened the back door and climbed in without a sound. When the door clicked shut, the sound echoed too loud in the silence. Mark adjusted the rearview mirror. The woman sat directly behind him, her head bowed, hands resting on her lap. Water pooled around her feet, soaking the seat. He forced a smile through the mirror. "You live around here?" No answer. The only sound was her slow, steady breathing, too calm, too measured. Mark turned up the heater. Steam fogged the windows slightly, and for a moment, her reflection in the mirror looked wrong. Her lips were moving, but he couldn't hear words. A faint smell of damp earth filled the car, like wet soil after a burial. Mark blinked, shook his head, and focused on the road. "Just across the bridge," he muttered. "That's all." The minutes dragged. The rain softened into a fine drizzle, but inside the car the air felt heavier, colder. Mark noticed that the temperature had dropped sharply. His breath fogged in front of him, even with the heater on full. He looked into the mirror again. The back seat was empty. Mark's grip on the wheel tightened. He turned sharply to look behind him. Nothing. The seat was wet, the door still locked. His pulse raced. "No, I saw her. She got in," he whispered to himself. Then, from the mirror, something flickered, movement in the back seat. Mark froze. The sound of dripping water came from right behind him. He turned his head slowly. The woman was sitting there again, closer this time. Her head still bowed, but now, a faint whisper escaped her lips, words he couldn't understand. The road stretched ahead into darkness, and Mark realized the bridge was still miles away. Mark's heart pounded as he tried to focus on the road, but every second, the urge to look back grew stronger. The air inside the car felt damp, thick, almost alive. The smell of wet soil was stronger now, mixed with something metallic, faintly like rust or blood. His hands trembled on the wheel. He forced a deep breath. "It's fine," he whispered to himself. "Just tired. You're imagining this." The windshield fogged up again. The wipers squeaked, but visibility barely improved. Then, in the corner of his eye, movement. The woman's reflection appeared in the rearview mirror. She was sitting upright now, facing forward. Her head no longer bowed. Water dripped steadily from her hair, hitting the seat with soft taps. Her pale face was blank, her lips slightly parted. Mark's throat went dry. "Ma'am, are you okay?" he asked, his voice shaking. No answer. Then she smiled. Just slightly. A small, chilling curl of her lips that didn't reach her eyes. Mark blinked in panic, and when he looked again, she wasn't there. The back seat was empty once more. The radio crackled suddenly, static, whispering, a faint female voice repeating something too low to understand. He turned it off, but the whispering didn't stop. It was coming from behind him. A sudden gust of freezing air filled the car, as if all the warmth had been sucked out. Mark's breath came out white. The dashboard lights flickered. The woman's reflection flashed across the mirror again, closer this time. She leaned toward him slowly, her wet hair brushing against the seat. The windshield fogged up completely now, a white blur. And then, on the fogged glass, words began to appear, drawn by an unseen hand. "Why did you leave me?" Mark gasped and slammed the brakes. The car screeched to a halt on the slick road. His chest tightened as fear swallowed him whole. He spun around. Empty seat. No one there. Only water dripping onto the floor mat, drop by drop. Outside, the rain had stopped. Inside, he could still hear soft breathing. Mark threw open the door and stumbled out into the night, gasping for air. The world was utterly silent. The rain clouds had cleared, leaving only mist swirling low around the road. He circled the car with shaking hands, calling out, "Where are you?" But his voice was swallowed by the fog. He looked through the windows. The back seat was soaked. Wet footprints led from the seat, out the other door, and onto the road. He followed the footprints for a few steps before they just ended. No sign of her. No sign of anyone. Mark's reflection stared back at him in the car window, pale, terrified. His heart hammered in his ears. Then, the rear door creaked open. Slowly, by itself. Mark froze. The cold wind blew through the open door. Inside, on the back seat, the fog on the window formed another message, shakier, uneven. "Don't leave me again." Mark backed away, trembling. The headlights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. Darkness swallowed Route 17, and Mark realized the bridge was still waiting ahead. Mark finally reached a dimly lit gas station near the bridge. His hands were trembling so badly that the keys slipped from his grip as he stepped inside. The place was empty except for an old attendant sitting behind the counter, reading a newspaper under flickering fluorescent lights. "Sir," Mark's voice cracked. I picked up a woman back there. White dress. She disappeared inside my car." The old man's head lifted slowly. His expression froze, the color draining from his face. "White dress," he repeated, barely above a whisper. Mark nodded frantically. "Yeah," said she wanted to go across the bridge. "She was right behind me 1 second, and gone the next." The man swallowed hard, his eyes fixed on the rain outside. "You shouldn't have stopped," he said quietly. Mark frowned. "What do you mean?" The old man stood up, walked to the window, and pointed down the road. 5 years ago, a woman died on that bridge. Hit by a truck during a storm just like this one. People say she still tries to hitch a ride, to finish her journey home. Mark's chest tightened. "That's impossible." The old man looked back at him. "You said she got in your car?" Mark nodded slowly. "Then you've already taken her once before." Before Mark could speak, the lights flickered violently, and for just a second, through the glass door, he saw a pale face reflected beside his own. Mark drove again, heart pounding, eyes fixed on the wet, winding road ahead. He told himself it was all a story, an old man's superstition. But his hands wouldn't stop shaking. As he crossed onto the bridge, the radio came alive with static. He hadn't turned it on. At first, it was just white noise. Then a voice, soft, broken, whispered through the crackle. "You promised you'd come back." Mark froze. He turned the radio dial, trying to shut it off, but the whisper only grew clearer. "You left me here, Mark." The sound of dripping water filled the car again. He glanced at the rearview mirror. The back seat was wet. She was there, sitting calmly, eyes wide open, staring at him through the mirror. Mark screamed and swerved. The car spun wildly, tires screeching. Headlights illuminated the bridge rails. Then darkness swallowed everything. Rain began again before dawn. The wrecked car sat quietly on the side of Route 17, headlights flickering weakly through the fog. There was no sign of Mark, only an empty driver's seat and the faint impression of a woman's hand on the fogged window. Later that morning, a passing truck slowed near the bridge. The driver rubbed his eyes. He thought he saw something ahead. A woman, standing by the roadside, wearing white. She lifted her hand slowly, palm out, asking for a ride. The truck stopped. The driver leaned over and called out, "You need help, ma'am?" She smiled faintly, her eyes cold and distant. "Just across the bridge," she said softly. And as the truck door opened, the rain began to fall again. Somewhere in the static of an abandoned car radio, a whisper echoed one last time. "You never really leave Route 17. If you enjoyed this chilling story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bell turn on notifications so you never miss a night on the dark side. Ghost more real horror tales coming soon. Stay in the shadows.